What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Bailey Canning. I'm an independent digital marketing strategist based in Boulder, Colorado, and it's a beautiful day out here, prime fall season, and I'm recording this right on the balcony of my apartment. In today's video, I wanted to talk about ChatGPT and this whole AI revolution that we're seeing and how I am thinking about and currently implementing ChatGPT into my business and all the work I'm doing for my clients as well. Quick thing that I got to get out of the way right away is how I would say, broadly speaking, people in the advertising industry and then really just all industries that are touched by tech in general should be thinking about this is that while it can be very scary because we have really not seen a technology like this that threatens to take over people's jobs potentially, although people on the other side of that would argue that innovation, while it will destroy some industries, always leads to new industries being developed and new jobs because of this new technology. That would be the creative destruction argument. I'm not sure how this will shake up in AI because while I do think that has been true for basically every other technological revolution in the past, this one is, I would say, fundamentally different. So ultimately, there's many smarter people and more interesting people that have opined on the matter. So I don't want to get too into that for the purposes of today's video, but I would say that really in the marketing field specifically, if you do not embrace this technology and you're not looking into ways to literally implement it in every single workflow, not just for your own business, but for your client's business, then I would say you're just putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage for no reason other than to be a Luddite or a laggard, as some people would say, and that the only way to succeed going forward is going to be to embrace this technology and try to steer it into a positive direction for society at large, but in this case specifically the marketing work we're doing for our clients. So I do think to shrink from this new technological development and just put your head in the sand and act like it's not happening, one, it's happening regardless, and two, that really is not going to do the best service for your clients, which is why I've been looking into every single way I can possibly implement this, not just for my own business, but as well as for all the client work I'm doing. So I'm going to give you a breakdown on that real quick. But basically, at the start of the year, I started using ChatGPT. I was pretty blown away by it, like the rest of society. And while I was familiar with a lot of AI copywriting tools at the time, similar to Jasper AI, ChatGPT is just on a whole other level. It was pretty obvious from the get-go once I started using it. So I quickly did what is called a thinking time session, which is advocated for in the book The Road Less Stupid by, I believe, Keith Cunningham. So at the start of the year, I sat down and I did a thinking time session all about all the different ways I can implement AI into the branding and web design process, as well as the ongoing marketing work that I'm doing for my clients. And so from that, I uncovered actually a ton of insights, and I want to talk about all the different ways essentially real quick, like a lightning round of all the different use cases, because I will say, to round out the thought process earlier of should you even be using this for your clients, because there's a bunch of concerns about AI hallucinating information and can you trust it and blah, blah, blah. I would say at this point, the way the technology is, if you're not using it, you're putting your clients at a distinct disadvantage 100%. So that's why I think we really just have no choice but to use it. All right, so I'm basically going to break this down into two separate categories. We're going to talk about the marketing / branding work I do for clients and how I use ChatGPT and other AI tools for that. And then I'm also going to talk about how I use it specifically in the web design and web development process. If one of those interests you more than the others, there's chapters down below, so you can just skip to whatever you're interested in. Getting right to it though, essentially when it comes to the marketing and branding work, I found it very helpful to do market research. What this could look like is I'll ask ChatGPT to be my prospective client. So one client I've been working with recently, this was a few months ago when we were just starting the project, is a engineering firm based in San Diego. And essentially, while I was familiar with the construction and architecture industry, I had never worked with an engineering client before, and I had a lot of questions about the types of clients they're dealing with and the avatars we were developing. So instead of spending time Googling around and trying to find articles about all this stuff, which were not very helpful as I tried before that, I just asked ChatGPT all these questions directly, got super helpful answers, and literally just started copying and pasting it into a Google Doc, which I use as like a master research doc when I'm just taking on a new client. Then for the discovery meeting, which I usually project, essentially this is like a detailed discovery of their business, as you could imagine. And while I do have some boilerplate questions I usually ask my clients, for now I've been using ChatGPT to generate a list of highly specific questions right away from the research I've been doing, and I found that to be super helpful as well. Also, developing client avatars around their demographics, key purchase indicators, frustrations and fears, as well as their wants and aspirations, which is essentially the digital marketer customer avatar canvas. I've taken those 4 bullet points that I just talked about, those 4 categories of information, and I've essentially fed that back to ChatGPT. It knows exactly what the digital marketer customer avatar canvas is, and from that, it's helped me develop super detailed client avatars way more detailed than I could ever do myself. And all the clients that I've delivered that to have been super impressed with it. They really like the detail. And that's when I really started to notice. I was like, wow, I would never have been able to come up with this sort of in-depth information by myself. So that's why it's super helpful to have something like ChatGPT. And that's why I've started using it, because quite honestly, it's doing a way better job than I could do on my alone. So of course I got to be bringing that value to my clients as well. Secondly, I've also started using it a lot for keyword research. In this area, I will say there is a lot of room for improvement. So for example, it really just gives me ideas on SEO keywords we might want to target in a future SEO campaign as I build out a sitemap, which is usually one of the first things I do with my clients in that growth marketing roadmap. Information I'll link somewhere in this video for that. But basically it gives me a list of keywords to research, and then from that I can do SEO keyword research onto what keywords might be very profitable to aim to rank for in the local area. Of course, one day I can see that being directly integrated into one sort of SEO tool where it's able to do all this keyword research for you automatically. This saves me a couple hours right there. I also use it to help me develop a PPC opportunity report. PPC is shorthand essentially for Google Ads, because Google Ads is the main PPC advertising provider. What I have it do is help me create a PPC opportunity report. What this essentially means is that before we start running any ads, based on the keywords I input into the Google Ads keyword planner, based on this formula I've developed that I also put into a spreadsheet, essentially I have it do the math for me, so I don't really need to think about it so much. I was not great in math in high school or college, I must admit. But now with ChatGPT, that's no longer a problem. I'm literally Einstein out there. But of course, if you know about Einstein, he wasn't very good at math apparently either. I don't know how good I am at math, but I'm certainly much better with it with ChatGPT, and essentially I'm able to develop this entire opportunity report where before we run any ads and spend any money, we're able to basically calculate the potential return on investment in terms of how much money is it going to cost to generate X amount of leads, how much is each lead worth, etc. And from that, we're able to backtrack into seeing if it would be profitable to run Google Ads, which has been super helpful for me. And then finally, I've been using it a lot for data analysis. So now you can actually upload files to ChatGPT, which I did not have for a very long time. And essentially now, for example, I'll export all the keyword rankings from a client's website as we do an ongoing marketing campaign. One of those ongoing deliverables I might do as part of that campaign would be to optimize blog posts. So say, for example, we have a blog post that's ranking on the 3rd or 4th page of Google for a keyword that gets like 250 searches per month. Then in the past, I would have to like manually sort through the spreadsheet and find out what might be good opportunities. But now I just upload this spreadsheet to ChatGPT, and it's going to be the highest return on investment in terms of our time to re-optimize some of these blog posts based on their keyword rankings, and that if we can get on the first page for those keyword rankings, we know what's going to provide the most traffic, and it gives me a huge list right away. So right there is another great instance for it. I found over time that it's really good for large data analysis, where instead of sorting through spreadsheets myself or any other sort of dashboard or data, instead I just give it to ChatGPT and I ask the question I have, and it gives it right back to me much better than any sort of human could do. Those are like the main things I do in the research portion of a web design project when it comes to marketing. Now, when it comes to the actual website design and development work I do for clients, here ChatGPT has been super helpful. So let's just get it out of the way. I do use it for copywriting. However, I do make sure to provide it with a lot of great input, so it's actually going to be able to write relevant copy for the client I'm working with. This includes giving a ton of background information on the company, the clients that they're trying to work with, the services they provide, etc. A lot of times I just copy and paste this from the existing website. I then might add in other documents that we have available. So if we've done a story brand workshop, which I have talked about in previous videos, I'll give it that, which is super helpful for having it really angle the copy in the right direction. I'll then give it the client avatar so it knows who we're trying to write copy for, which is super important. I'd say if you have those two resources, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But then I also try to give it some other things such as brand values or like the brand voice, things of that nature. I'll then use it to write the first draft of copy for the entire website. And generally, I go section by section. So I'll start by the homepage and I'll be like, these are the sections we have. Here are our goals for every section. Here's the purpose of it, etc. So I do give it a lot of input. I'm not just like, yo, go write the copy. And essentially what I do with that, once I get it all done out of the way, I'll use that as the first draft of copy, and then I'll do some editing myself based on what I think the client is going to like and based on other things such as the style and tone we're going for. So it's been super helpful to get just a first draft of copy in 2 hours perhaps. It saves me a lot of money, saves me a lot of time, because otherwise I'd either have to write the copy myself or I'd have to hire a copywriter. So it has certainly been helpful for that. And then depending on how granular the client wants to get in the copy, then depends how many edits we'll have to do from there. I'll then have it help me develop UX outlines for every page. So essentially UX, user experience. When it comes to creating wireframes for the website, I always start with UX wireframes. So essentially it's just the content and the layout. We're not really concerned with UI elements like the colors, the typography, the images, etc., the textures. So I'll just explain to it what are my goals trying to accomplish with each page, and it'll essentially give me a UX outline. And then using the Loom library with Webflow, I'll then just find sections that match that and put it in. Obviously, as I'm getting this information from ChatGPT, I'm thinking about how can I actually, I'm always adjusting based on what I know about the client and what's based on what's going to work and my own professional experience as well. But this saves me a ton of time because instead of having to think from scratch every single time about what sections are we going to need to have on every single page of the website, ChatGPT just generates it for me, and then I actually design that. Now, Loom library did come out with their own AI site builder tool. I'm going to make a video about that as well, so I will be playing around with that. That might even streamline the process further, so we will see. I'll then do a lot of UX interviews with it as well. So essentially I'll ask it to be a prospective client, and then I'll ask it what type of content would you want to see on the web page here, and then it's also very helpful for coming up with content ideas for each page as well. Then at the start of the UI design process, when we're actually thinking about what types of fonts and colors and all these other elements we're going to want to have to create a visually appealing and creative website, I'll often ask it for some ideas as well as just a general starting point. As a general rule of thumb at the moment, I try to use ChatGPT more for straightforward tasks, more like analytical type tasks versus creative tasks, because I don't think AI is necessarily at the point at this moment where it can really come up with new organic ideas by itself, and more just like recycles things at the moment. But I don't think that'll be like that for a very long time as well. Then finally, when it comes to actually developing a website in Webflow, so Webflow recently announced that they're going to be integrating AI as well, but as of the moment, there is no AI there yet. But I do use ChatGPT a ton for just writing custom code that I might need to embed into the website, or just asking it to troubleshoot bugs or other issues that I'm seeing as well as I develop the website. It writes way better code than I could ever dream of at this point. There's no reason not to use it for that, I see. And then finally, I'll use it as a lot as well. And then finally, it knows all about Webflow because it literally crawled the entire internet. So I'll ask it how to put together custom animations or interactive effects, and it'll give me step-by-step instructions to do that, which saves me a lot of time versus trying to find some tutorial video exactly how I would want it. And then finally as well, similar to the copywriting, I'll use it for creating the SEO title tags and meta descriptions. Obviously, I edit this myself though, which is a general theme is I'll use ChatGPT to do 80 or 90% of the things, and then I'll edit the last 10 to 20%. But then there's also other instances like in the client avatars where ChatGPT just blows me out of the water. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown of all the different ways I'm using ChatGPT in my daily workflow as a marketing strategist / web designer. If you work in the field of marketing as well, I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I hope you got some inspiration about ways you can use it as well. Ultimately, it is a total game changer. I have it open literally all day on my laptop. I actually use the app Mac GPT, where it's essentially a standalone Mac app in the browser. So the interface looks the same, but you can just essentially have ChatGPT in its own app window versus being one tab in the browser, so it's easier to access, I find, with like keyboard shortcuts. But yeah, ChatGPT has been a total game changer. If you're in the marketing industry and you're not using this, I don't even know what to say, honestly. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to criticize anyone, but I don't know what to say. It's just a total game changer. It's hard to believe that it hasn't even been out for a year yet. I don't even know how I got half this stuff done before because it's been such a huge help. So yeah, hope this video was helpful. It's very off the cuff, but let me know if you have any questions or comments in the video. And if you find this type of stuff interesting or helpful, definitely like the video, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Helps me out. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Bye.